And to prove her story, she could give a very specific, detailed account of the very noticeable curve in Bill Clinton's penis.
I have heard about this because, the fact that this woman could identify him by his penis.
And the thing is that most penises typically bend to the left or the right. So she can't be referring to that natural bend. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that my willy's nice and straight. What I'm saying is like when it's just hanging loose, it's just kind of like, it drifts more to the left or more to the right. So she must be talking like banana dick.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So there's clearly a characteristic about his penis which you could spot in a lineup.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's different.
That was Bill.
Welcome to the Compendium, an assembly of fascinating and intriguing things, a weekly variety podcast that gives you just enough information to stand your ground at any social gathering. We explore stories from the darker corners of true crime, the annals of your old unread history books, and the who's who of extraordinary people. I'm your ringmaster this week, Kyle Reese.
And I'm your fire dancer this week.
Oh, hang on.
What?
What's your costume? You don't want to be like those minimally clad kind of fire dancers. You might burn something useful.
Well, I'll be the one, where they have like marshmallows on sticks and they rub them all over their body. I'm gonna be scantily clad.
You don't want to burn your nipples. Oof.
It's fine, I've got some repellent on that.
Adam, in today's episode of The Compendium, we are diving into an assembly of secrets, scandals, and a political chess game.
Okay, political. Well, it's got to be to do with politics.
You would guess right, wouldn't you?
Scandals. What prime minister or I don't know has done something?
Today I'm telling you the story of the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal.
Oh, the famous affair or whatever it was.
Was it an affair though?
Yeah, because he came out under oath and said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
So actually, that's a really good start for today's story. What is your understanding of the story?
That he had sexual relations with that woman.
Okay. And what else?
Well, I don't know if it's a spoiler alert, but I know there was evidence that came up about it. Like, wasn't there like a stain?
On the infamous blue dress, correct?
That's it, yeah.
Yes.
And because she was like his secretary or something like that.
Interesting.
And yeah, and then I don't actually know what happened in the end, to be honest. I don't know if it blew over or if he like had to go to court or something because he had to swear under oath. So he must have been, was he being impeached?
Well, that was the proceedings that all of this led to, was the impeachment. But the impeachment doesn't mean that he was impeached. He went through an impeachment, but that's a process. And then they decide at the end whether or not they should remove him from office or not. And the reality is that he wasn't. Like, he wasn't removed. He wasn't impeached.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, did anything actually happen? Because he served his term and then George Bush took over.
Do you remember this story breaking as a young kid?
Not really, because I've seen it been talked about probably after that, maybe documentaries, people making fun of the jokes, whatever it is.
That's it. People made so much fun of this whole situation. But I chose the story after rewatching Impeachment, an American Crime Story. And even after already watching it, the memory of how this story was reported back in the 90s is still etched in my brain. Nothing's going to remove what my understanding of what happened from the 1990s, in spite of obviously now knowing everything around the story. But it was actually way more complex than we were always led to believe during the 1990s. And at the time, especially those of us who were young in the 1990s, the scandal was presented as Monica Lewinsky having given the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, a series of blowjobs in the White House when she was working there as an intern.
Series of blowjobs.
A series of blowjobs, yeah. It's
I've never heard it put like that.
A bunch of blowjobs, all right? She's sucking a lot of dick. And while that is what happened, their relationship wasn't this all-consuming love affair that we were led to believe that it was. And that surrounding these thrusts, if you want to call them that, there was a way more complicated set of events that was actually taking place with different kind of factions all working together to bring the president down, even after years of trying. So Monica and Clinton's affair, and I use that in quote marks, was actually a very small part of a much larger multi-layered series of events all happening at the same time. But despite all of that, people just wanted to focus on the blowjobs. And so therefore, that's what we got given in the media because people were so fixated on it. So today, I wanted to tell you the story in the context in which it deserves, trimming down all the complexities as much as I can because, like I said, there is a lot going on in the story. So there is a fair amount of meanwhiles and while this is happening, etc. But still, I'll focus on the most interesting aspects and hopefully it will help us see the story for what it actually was. And as Hillary Clinton put it, she said it was a vast right-wing conspiracy to bring down the president of the United States.
See, I always thought he was quite well liked. And only afterwards, when I've heard a bit about the impeachment, I'm like, oh, well, maybe he wasn't that well liked, or maybe not by the party.
He was hugely popular, Adam. He was very liked.
Yeah, but not by people within the White House, maybe?
Put it this way, not by people in the opposition.
Sure. But then when do you like your opposition?
Exactly, that's the thing, right?
Anything to tear them down. The Democrats, the Republicans, Labour, Conservative, whatever.
They're all playing their dirty game of one-upmanship.
Yeah.
And that's exactly
Slinging
what's happening here. Exactly. Slinging feces. But before we get into today's episode, I think it's time for all the latest things.
Let's do it.
This is a segment of our show where we catch up on all the things we've discovered over the last 7 days, from weird news to mind-boggling facts. This is All the Latest Things. Adam, what have you got for us today?
So, I'm back with my animal news.
Oh, yes. I think the listeners have missed it, really.
Yeah. Well, I always enjoy some fun animal news from around the world. And this week, we're starting off in the UK. So, if you live in the UK or you've ever travelled to the UK, you may know that travelling on trains is a bit of a nightmare, especially if it snows, because we can't handle snow.
No, we can't.
Whereas every other country manages to do it.
Which is so weird because you think that the UK is so synonymous with snow and rain and drizzle and bad weather.
Yeah, we get
but yet
snow.
we can't cope with a bit of snow. It's weird.
Those 3 days or 4 days of the year, just a standstill.
Yeah.
So the snow, if there's leaves on the track,
Leaves.
a single leaf or multiple leaves, then we shut down. And the latest obstacle with train travel in the UK is squirrels.
Oh, really? What are these squirrels doing? These damn pesky squirrels.
Well, these squirrels boarded a train without tickets, number one, which is definitely against the laws.
Fine.
Yeah. So they joined this train from Gatwick, I think it was, and they're on their way, and it was forcing passengers to flee to other carriages because there's about several squirrels jumping around and people are going, losing their mind.
Still, several squirrels doesn't evoke the terror that you would expect it to. It's like, oh, I had to move to another carriage. But the way that this has been pitched is like, oh, there was a tsunami of squirrels and there was terror and carnage and they were eating everyone's nuts.
Exactly. If you've got a bag of KP nuts open, then good luck. You are targeted. They're like pulling your hair and everything.
It reminds me of those little fairies from Harry Potter when they let them out the pixies, I think they were.
Yeah.
Imagine them being all mischievous like that.
I think so. Anyway, so people, the conductor and other people on the train were trying to get the squirrels off, and they were like basically shoving them with brooms, trying to sweep them off the train. But then they just couldn't get them out of the train, and so therefore they
the train belongs to the squirrels.
Yeah, and they had to terminate that particular destination. Like, sorry folks, we can't go any further because there's squirrels on the train.
But just close that carriage.
No, that's what I would have thought.
Oh my God.
But hey, look out for squirrels on your next train journey.
I think I will.
So that's my first piece. My second piece of animal news, which I think is my favourite animal news, it even tops the squirrels, is a Chinese zoo has gotten into trouble for their panda exhibition.
Oh, God. Okay.
So they've been advertising, because obviously pandas are rare in the wild and they're sort of brought into captivity to try and, I guess, get them to breed and everything like that. And they've been advertising that they had these pandas in their zoo. People turned up at the zoo. It's at Shanghai Zoo. And they found out that actually it was just a couple of chow chows that had been painted.
That's the thing, though. China is so infamous for kind of the counterfeiting shit. Like they will get onions and they will paint them black because they're trying to mimic a really special, rare type of onion
Right.
or garlic, black garlic, for example. They'll dye it or they'll soak them in like a black dye. But this is just taking it to the next level. They're counterfeiting pandas now.
Yeah. And tourists or people visiting the zoo were like, they could see these pandas, quotes, were visibly panting while resting on a rock fence. And then they've got like a long tail like whipping around. And so they're like, that's not a panda. But I've got a picture here.
Oh no, brilliant. Oh my God, Adam. A, they've done a really good job, but
They
that's
have.
blatantly a dog.
Yeah.
That's so cruel.
It's, I think from a distance, maybe you could get away with it, apart from pandas don't walk like that.
No, they don't walk on four legs like a dog. They don't have a big curly tail like a dog. That's a chow.
But then a few people have said, oh, that's really cruel to the animals. You've dyed their fur. That's not okay. I guess that it's, it's a type of dye that's not going to be harmful or anything like that. But
you want it to be permanent, though, if it's going to be a dye, because you don't want this to... Do you think that someone has gone to the zoo and said to these zoo officials that they have these pandas and sold them it? So it's a scam rather than the zoo trying to pass them off.
No, the zoo kind of had to admit and say, oh, sorry, we thought it was okay to say this. Maybe a bit like it's a bit of a joke, but actually they hadn't been saying it was a joke.
Oh, I see.
And the zoo did say, well, humans dye their hair, so why can't dogs?
Yeah, but you don't pass them off as a panda.
Yeah. So yeah, you can go see the panda dogs in this Chinese zoo.
It'd be cool if that becomes a new breed, though. Because I always find it so fascinating. We have so many different breeds of dogs, right? So many varieties, big dogs, small dogs, from a Great Dane to a Chihuahua, right? There's such a huge variation. Why don't we see the same variations in cats? Why don't we have giant cats that we breed them to almost be like lions? Yes, I know we try with Maine Coons and things like that. They look quite ferocious and liony. But why can't we get the vast degree of variation in cats?
I don't know.
I would love a giant domestic house cat.
Yeah, there's a good chance it might eat you, though.
I'm happy to take that risk. I mean, doesn't anyone who owns a cat take that risk on a day-to-day basis?
If you shut your eyes at night, you might not wake up.
Yeah, you might not. You might wake up and they've eaten your face.
Yeah, could happen.
It could happen.
Okay, so what have you got for us?
So, strippers. Turns out they're better than some of the leading economists on the planet at predicting when an economic slowdown is coming.
By this, someone like taking off their clothes.
I'm intrigued to know, inside your brain, what other stripper kinds are there?
I just want to be sure and not someone like stripping paint. Or...
Paint strippers. Paint strippers are really great at predicting economic slowdowns.
Just want to double check.
No, I'm talking about the very graceful, very demure strippers that prop up this economy.
Okay.
So on May the 19th, 2022, there was a lot of infighting amongst economists about whether or not we were heading into a recession. And so a dancer on Twitter known as Bocelli Bimbo, she sent out a tweet calling out economists saying that they were completely out of touch with how white men spend their money and that as a stripper, she had the secret sauce. And when the tweet blew up, a flood of other strippers started chiming in saying that they agreed with Bocelli Bimbo, saying that of course, when a recession hits, one of the first things that people cut back on is, of course, entertainment. And strip clubs is, of course, no exception. But here's the thing. We're not just talking about the average Joe, because strip clubs aren't just about simple entertainment. They're actually these really key, important business hubs where kind of people will take clients and wine and dine them as part of kind of negotiations.
Yeah, you take them out, you get them drunk, you get them to sign a contract.
Exactly. And then when that starts happening less and less, it's a pretty clear indication that businesses are hiring less, they're investing less, and so the economy starts to kind of slow down. And these strippers are pointing out that like December in particular is like a crucial month for strippers. That's when financial employees typically receive their end of year bonuses. When December turns out to be a dud, it's a very clear indication to them that we're about to go into a recession.
Ah, interesting.
I just found that so fascinating. So a bunch of these economists started looking into this, comparing strip club revenue over the years. And it turns out they're 100% right. It's not so much as a long-term forecasting tool. It's more of a kind of an indication that the slowdown is happening now, like we're at the beginning of it. But economists and stock market managers now use what they call the stripper index to help them better understand when to start selling off their stocks and start reeling in spending.
I feel like there's a cause to have this stripper news or whatever presented by Destiny. and she's talking about her stock options. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to put them into safe investments over the next 12 months because I know we're in for a shit show.
Adam, that's exactly what happened. So
What?
in 2007, this stripper advised one of her clients to start selling off all of his stocks because she knew that the strip club was quieter than normal. So he listened and then he sold off all of his stocks for cash and then he bought them all back in 2018 after the stock market had crashed. And so far, he's almost doubled his money. She's done the same thing.
I should have been a stripper.
I don't think you can cut it as a stripper.
What?
There's a lot of bending over, Adam.
Yeah, that's my back these days.
So the next time you hear about an economic forecast, maybe it's worth checking with your favorite stripper to verify the facts. Like,
I haven't got
Destiny.
I haven't got a favorite stripper.
Everyone needs a stripper on speed dial. For me, it's my mum. She tells me all the time she's really good at stripping.
Yeah, I don't think she's that great at investing in financial advice.
I mean, I think my mum's pretty savvy when it comes to money. She's rolling in the dough, man. She's always giving me money.
Stuffed
It's
in a
always
mattress.
cash. I know. Where's the money coming from?
I'm not sure if she's great at finance or whether she's a criminal.
She could be a stripper. That's what I'm saying.
Fair enough. Is she washing the money with you?
She's a money launderer. But yeah, that's all my latest things. Shall we get on with the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal?
Let's do it.
So Adam, to sum up, it is fair to say that Bill Clinton was a scumbag.
Really?
Yeah, Adam, he was a dirty scumbag.
Aside from a series of blowjobs, I thought he was fine.
I mean, he was beloved. He was good at running the country, but he was a scumbag. If, like, the Me Too movement had existed in the 1990s, he absolutely would not have survived that, 100%. But what I find so fascinating about these stories of kind of sexual misconduct in the modern era is the idea of balancing morality. Like, take someone like Jimmy Savile, for example. Like, on the one hand, he did all this great charity work and he helped countless number of people. But on the other hand, he did these really terrible things. It doesn't excuse what he did, but it is interesting to see how the world balances these revelations in light of the good things that someone does. And of course, like, Jimmy Savile's probably a really bad example because, of course, he was awful. But similarly, Bill Clinton, yes, he was a scumbag, but he was actually a really effective president who did a lot of good things for the economy. People had jobs, the country was prosperous, and he was ushering in this new era of technological advancement. And because he was such a good president, the opposition, the Republican Party, found it very difficult to bring him down politically. And at the time, they couldn't really attack him for how he was running the country, so they thought that maybe they could try and get him on something else.
Personal attack.
Personal attacks, that is it. And this is how all of this started. It wasn't this pursuit of morality from the Republican Party in, like, protecting women in light of sexual misconduct. There was a very clear political agenda behind everything that is about to unfold. And when I talk about morality and the Republican Party, I say that very deliberately because that's how the Republicans try to portray themselves. But make no mistake, they were also filled with scumbags. They weren't motivated by women's rights or feminists. This was all just one big giant front to score political points against the opposing party that was seen as less morale, essentially. So to kick things off, we need to step into the Compendium time machine and we need to travel all the way back to 1992, because this will provide us with the much needed context for what's about to happen. And that's really important to the story. I want to give you the context in which the Monica and Clinton scandal took place, because that will help us understand the bigger things at play here. So, what do you remember from 1992?
How old would I have been? 4 or 5, so I must have been starting school. So what else was going on? I feel like Captain Planet was a thing. I was pretty sure I was into that.
I always wanted to be the little Asian girl. And the thing is, though, you were the Asian girl.
Yeah.
You did look like you are the human embodiment of Russell from Up.
Yes, everyone knows that now, I think.
Didn't you tell me that you were just adopted into a little group of...
I had Chinese best friends until I was about 11 or 12, yeah. Until
they discovered you were an imposter.
You're like, you're not Chinese. Get out.
Get out of here. You can't do math.
Yeah, that was the giveaway.
So in 1992, Bill Clinton was the governor of... I never know how to say this. It's technically Arkansas, but every time I see it, I always say...
Arkansas.
Yeah. Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's just really
Arkansas.
weird. How did that even happen? How did it get started being pronounced as Arkansas?
Well, if there's anyone from Norfolk that went over and commandeered that part of of America, then it could have been one of them because we have some weird names.
Yeah, we do. And so it was around about this time that he announces his candidacy for the 1992 election against the incumbent, George Bush Sr. So that will be kind of George Bush's dad. Mm-hmm. He's only ever served one term, which is interesting. So it's normal for a lot of presidents to go off and serve 2 terms and to not get your second term, a bit like what Trump done. That's a bit of a kick in the face, right? And so almost immediately following this announcement, Republicans quickly saw that Bill Clinton's charismatic personality posed a potential threat to George Sr.'s re-election. So the Republican Party set out on a campaign to discredit Bill in any way they could. The first thing they tried to do was latch on to Hillary Clinton's decision to keep her maiden name after marrying Bill. And the reason was simple. She was already a successful lawyer who had made her name for herself based on her reputation, and she wanted to keep the name associated with that reputation. But the Republican Party spun this into how this was an example of how this, and I love this, how the new boomer generation was about to take over running the country, and they had no regard for kind of traditional family values. And if a woman was unwilling to take her husband's name, then was this the type of people that we wanted running America?
That's so ridiculous.
It is.
Like, how dare she not take the name?
How scandalous.
She is some harlot coming in.
Yeah, that's it. Because they were seen as like these progressive kind of people. Today, they seem completely different, right? They're seen as old Stone Age kind of people with old kind of values and kind of like not very progressive. But
30
at
years
the
ago.
time, they were. And so this was the start of that pattern of attacking the Clintons. But other than the Christian right, Americans just didn't really care. And so when that didn't work, it came out that Bill Clinton had previously had a 12-year affair with a woman named Jennifer Flowers.
12-year affair?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
And so Hillary stuck by him through all this.
She sticks by him through all of this. They're still married today.
Yeah.
And this was made even more salacious because she was a singer and an actress by trade who, at some point, Bill Clinton got her a job in the Arkansas administration. So the narrative summary was that Bill Clinton was a cheater who brought in his bimbo girlfriend into the government, and this was kind of immoral and a disgusting abuse of kind of political power. But again, Americans were like, listen, we don't care where he puts his privates. All we care about is, will he be a good president? So Republicans were just left in the dust. The smear campaign just failed miserably, and Bill Clinton went on to become the 42nd president of the United States.
Do you know, that hasn't really changed because I feel like we bring up dirt, or the journalists get dirt on presidents or prime ministers, which isn't good. You know, you only have to think about Trump and some of the stuff that came out about him grabbing people
by the pussy.
Yeah. And yeah, he's still got into power.
Yeah.
There's enough people that look past that and go, it's just Trump being Trump, a little rascal. And then, yeah, give him a pass.
I mean, that's good. I get it. But talking, like having an affair with someone is salacious in one aspect. But being derogatory towards women in that way is another thing.
True. And so that's even worse.
Yeah.
Because at least an affair,
maybe
there's a romantic
so they still look
element.
past it even though it was worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really changed.
No, it hasn't really, has it? So for the Republicans to add insult to injury, because remember, they are kind of the party of morality, Bill Clinton goes ahead and he appoints a bunch of women to high-level positions, more than any previous president had ever done before. This included people like Janet Reno, who became the first female attorney general, Madeleine Albright, she was the first female secretary of state, and of course, Ruth Ginsburg. She's that really famous kind of Supreme Court justice who looks just like a much older version of Judge Judy. You've probably seen her like in a black gown and then like her doily around her neck. She's got those big glasses. She recently died.
Oh, I think now that she's died. Oh, yeah, now I know who she is.
So Republicans knew they were going to have to dig a lot deeper if they wanted to get Bill. And just to clarify, I'm not really deeply connected to American politics. I don't really have a dog in the race. I'm not vilifying the Republican Party because of some political bias. There's no doubt that if Bill Clinton had been a Republican president, the Democrats would have pulled kind of similar tactics to discredit whoever the Republican president was. So I get the sense that this is just a pattern in politics. So the next thread that the Republicans try to pull on is in 1993 when a guy called Vince Foster, he's the deputy White House counsel, and he's found dead in a park near the White House.
Okay.
It appears that he's committed suicide as a result of the immense pressure that he was under in the wake of something called the Whitewater scandal. Does that ring a bell to you?
Whitewater. No, I know of the other scandal with Nixon, but not the
Yeah,
Watergate
so that's the
scandal.
Watergate. So keep that in your brain in a second, because it kind of loosely connect. There's a connection.
Is Whitewater a place then, or?
Yes, exactly. So Whitewater, to sum up, was an investigation into a controversial real estate investment made by Bill and Hillary Clinton in the late 1970s. Now, the allegation is that the Clintons had funneled money from this investment into the Clinton campaign. Now, that's apparently very illegal. Initially, they found nothing, but when Finns Foster was found dead, it was implied that he might have been killed by the Clintons themselves to cover up information that could incriminate them if the investigation went any further.
So is this one of the first instances of the Clintons being corrupt? Because we've heard these stories of them like bumping off people since then.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first ones.
There's a list of people that have mysteriously disappeared or died. There's no evidence. It's all speculation. But this is where all this spread from, right? Mm-hmm. And so as this conspiracy started gaining traction, the Republicans pressed for an investigation. So reluctantly, Janet Reno, remember, she's the first attorney general that was appointed by Bill Clinton. She appoints a special counsel to carry out an investigation. And under Bill's recommendation, she places a guy called Robert Fisk in charge. In the end, Robert Fisk concludes that it was a suicide and it was case closed. Right? They find nothing. But to the Republicans, this looked like a cover-up because Robert Fisk was appointed by Bill Clinton to lead the investigation. So the Republicans called for Fisk's removal because they felt that he was working for Bill Clinton. So there might have been some kind of cover-up in this whole Whitewater scandal.
Sure, so not a neutral party looking into it.
That's exactly it. So he is replaced by a guy called Kenneth Starr. He's a Republican who is very interested in getting the Clintons on anything that will stick. Mm-hmm. Now, Kenneth Starr takes charge of what will become known as the Office of Independent Counsel, or the OIC. Their primary task is to investigate Whitewater and other matters. Now, the other matters in this investigation title would only be appended to this title when it becomes clear that the investigation around Whitewater had no substance. But for now, it was just the Whitewater scandal. And that's it. But it will later be turned into and other matters.
And other matters.
So this is where this conspiracy of people trying to bring him down are starting to collude with each other to try and kind of like make anything stick, because they can't make anything stick. So a whole year later in 1994, it's the presidential midterms. It's 2 years into his presidency, and this is an opportunity for the Republicans to gain more control. But they needed to organize and come up with a strategy. So the Republican House leader, a guy called Newt Gingrich, makes this big speech accusing the Democrats and the Clintons of being sympathetic to pornographers and criminals. And his message taps into this very sensitive kind of sense of moral outrage that's happening in America at the time, which is kind of all left over from like the 1970s and the 80s. Just remember kind of like the Satanic Panic episode that we did last year. It's still kind of left over from that era. So the aim of the speech was to dredge up fear and to try and sway public opinion. And it works. Like during the midterms, the Republicans managed to take full control of Congress for the first time since 1952. They gain seats in the Senate and they win 54 seats in the House of Representatives. So they have like, even though it's a Clinton administration, they have almost equal power now in the government, which means that it's going to be a lot more difficult for the Democrats to pretty much get anything done now.
Sure.
Basically, they'd now recruited a lot more numbers for their army against the Democrats, and now they needed a strategy of attack. So the Republican House leader issues a handbook containing instructions on how Republicans can continue to portray the Democrats as perverts and traitors when debating against Democrat bills or proposals, or when being interviewed by reporters in the media.
That's so crazy to say, oh, they're perverts.
Yeah. Because they were playing this card of morality. We are the party of morality and decency, and they are the perverts.
This is why I hate politics. Because it's just like a show, and no one actually... Should we just focus on running the country and not slagging each other off?
Exactly. And none of them cared about this morality thing at all. It was just a front.
Yeah.
So this wasn't all happening by accident. This was a very careful plan of attack. So soon after the midterms in 1994... an article appears in the American Spectator by a guy called David Brock. Now, this becomes known as Troopergate Because as we know, Americans love a gate scandal, hence why we have the Watergate scandal and we have all these different gate scandals and whatever. So this was one of them, and it was called Troopergate. In the article, it talks about how 4 state troopers from Arkansas helped Bill arrange various liaisons with various women.
Oh.
So one specific account describes how Bill Clinton spotted a young woman at the Excelsior Hotel and asked the troopers to bring her to him. And the article identifies the woman only as Paula. And the article claims that they brought her up to Clinton's hotel room where they allegedly had consensual sex.
Well, I'd hope so.
Yeah, I'd hope so too.
It'd make it sound like she was brought to him. But like, did
she
she
have biscuits?
Yeah, like, did she have any control? Like, hey, Bill wants to see you and you have to go. Or was it a case like...
I'm assuming she did have some agency, but the claim is that they had consensual sex. But this woman's actually name is Paula Jones, and she's going to become a very central figure in the story. When Paula reads the article in the American Spectator, she realizes the article is about her. She's outraged, and she completely denies the account, claiming it was 100% not consensual and that Bill Clinton had actually sexually assaulted her. What she's saying is that she went up to Clinton's room, she sat next to him, and he exposed himself. And then he asked her to kiss his penis.
Oh, God.
Now, Paula, a conservative and devout Christian, said of course she refused and she immediately left. She claimed that the article had damaged her reputation, and as a result, she had decided to file a sexual harassment lawsuit against Clinton, demanding $750,000 in damages. And to prove her story, she could give a very specific, detailed account of the very noticeable curve in Bill Clinton's penis.
I have heard about this because, the fact that this woman could identify him by his penis.
And the thing is that most penises, in my view, they typically bend to the left or the right. So she can't be referring to that natural bend or kind of the slant. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that my willy's nice and straight. What I'm saying is like when it's just hanging loose, it's just kind of like, oh, it drifts more to the left or more to the right. So she must be talking like banana dick.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So there's clearly a characteristic about his penis which you could spot in a lineup.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's different.
That was Bill.
Oh, God. So when this news breaks, of course, it's huge. Jones's lawyer, they hold a press conference where Paula is introduced to the media. And during the conference, her lawyers promised that in time, Paula would give, get this, a blow-by-blow account of what happened. So straight away, that is not the kind of language that's probably going to help build credibility and will do nothing for kind of victims of actual sexual harassment.
I was going to say, who chose those words?
I know. So bad. In hindsight, that is so bad. Probably at the time, it was kind of like, oh, we need media kind of attention on it. Let's use the language that's going to get that. But it's in poor taste, isn't it?
Really poor taste. Although part of me, and again, possibly poor taste, is did she have to draw it?
I don't know.
And did someone have to identify? Yeah, no, she's seen it.
I don't know. I hope she did draw it. So the story ends up just becoming a thing that people are just interested in purely for the salacious details of the president's penis. That's all they care about. They don't care that someone was assaulted by a really powerful man. They just don't care.
Yeah, because the thing is, he's got all the power and it doesn't matter, people can throw mud at him or whatever. He's going to get away with that, isn't he?
Exactly. You've said it right. He is the one in power. So in response, Clinton's lawyer, a guy called Bob Bennett, he issues a statement saying that the president has no recollection of ever meeting Paula and says that he is going to be seeking temporary immunity from any lawsuits that are filed while he is still in office.
How can you do that?
Well, this is the thing, though. This makes a lot of sense to me. Right? Because the argument is, how is a sitting president supposed to effectively do his job when he's been bombarded with frivolous lawsuits, right?
Okay.
The public at large agree with this as well. They go, yeah, just let him get on with the job. Of course, in hindsight, Clinton is guilty. But at the time, the facts weren't widely known. So his request for immunity at the time seems reasonable and kind of justifiable. It's thought that kind of Paula Jones was just being used as a political pawn by the Republicans to try and get one up on the Republicans. So it was obvious that it just contained no substance. Yeah. And to a degree, that was true, but they just didn't know that he did actually assault this woman.
Yeah, that's still not appropriate. And to expect her just to kiss it. Ugh. And also, what is Hillary thinking of this? Is she just like, oh, Bill, he's got his penis out again?
I don't know what he's telling her. I think that he told her that it didn't happen because he had an opportunity to come clean and everyone would have forgiven him, but he doesn't. And I think it's because he promised Hillary that he didn't do this.
But then he's had an affair before, so it's not like a first-time offence. And I do wonder, just given that she's obviously high profile, he's the president, and this sometimes happens when you're in a relationship and you're in sort of...
I hope not.
No, what I'm trying to get at, there's the stories about the Beckhams, right? And Rebecca Lewis. And so if you've got this much power, influence, money, and you don't want to damage your brand reputation, it's almost like those kind of things you have to almost have an agreement, like we can't talk about that. We have to carry on as a unit.
Yeah, we'll fight behind closed doors. It's all like smoke and mirrors on the outside when you're in public, or happy families, and then as soon as you get into the car, it's like, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know what he's been telling Hillary. I feel bad for Hillary. And so, like, yeah, she's been used as political pawn by the Republicans. And this is all true. But the sad thing is, Paula doesn't know this. She genuinely believes that these people are trying to help her get justice and had her best interests at heart, when in reality, they just wanted to get the president. Hey freaks, if you've been enjoying the show, we've got a small favour to ask.
Yeah, we need your help, and it's super simple, but it makes a massive difference. Last time we asked you guys to leave reviews, the response was overwhelming.
You all really showed up for us, and we loved reading every single one of your reviews. But we've got to keep that momentum going. So, if you're a seasoned Compendium podcast listener, or even if you're new here and you love what you're hearing, could you please take a quick second to leave us a review?
It's super easy. If you're on Spotify, all you got to do is click that star button and give us a 5-star review. Nice and quick, done in like 2 seconds.
But if you're feeling extra generous and you've got a bit more time in your hands, then head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a sweet, thoughtful written review. Trust us, this will go a long way.
Or if you're like, I don't use podcast apps, no worries. You can still show us some love by going to our website, thecompendiumpodcast.com, and leave us a review there. We've made it super easy.
The more reviews we get, the more listeners we can reach, and the better episodes we can bring you. It's a win-win, really.
So yeah, hit that star, leave us a review, and help us grow this amazing community. We appreciate it more than you know.
So, should we get back to the show?
Let's do it.
So now this brings us on to Ms. Lewinsky.
Ms. Lewinsky.
Ms. Lewinsky. Do you know, I've got a little story connected to Ms. Lewinsky in real life. So I used to work for a comic book store, as you know, and we used to do all these high-profile events where we would get kind of these stars from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel and all these different cult TV shows to come down and do signings and do Q&As. And one year we got Julie Benz. Do you remember Julie Benz? So she was the very first vampire ever to appear in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think like in episode 1. She was also, I can't remember her name, but she was in Desperate Housewives. She was the stripper. Stripper! She was the stripper that was living with Terry Pratchett, who was her TA assistant at school.
And she was also in Dexter, and she'd always speak with that sort of certain voice. ASMR voice.
Oh, no. She's always breathy, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Well, basically she'd come down along with a guy from Angel called Andy Hallett. And Andy Hallett was due to come, but he cancelled the last minute because he had a heart attack. Like, he was only like in his early 30s. But it turned out that the very last minute he decided that he was going to come after all. He was feeling a bit better. He came, they did the Q&A. It was all brilliant. But then he wasn't feeling well enough to go back home. So he thought, let me just stay in Norwich for a week or so. And it was my job to look after him for quite some time, the whole time he was there. So I would like take him shopping. I'd get anything he wanted. I'd spend time with him. And we became really good friends. I'm not sure if he was gay. I think he was. But we didn't obviously talk about that because I was really young. I think I was like only 17, 18. But he told me the story about how he was really drunk one night walking through Beverly Hills, and his mates thought it'd be really funny to put him in a garbage bin.
Right.
And the garbage bin they put him into was Monica Lewinsky's parents' bin. And that triggered off the security. And before you know it, there was SWAT teams that were there, a helicopter had come.
Really?
And he was just stuck in this bin, petrified to kind of like emerge in case they shot him. And he was put in their bin.
Wow.
What a story.
That's risky as well.
That's really risky. But Andy Hallett has died.
Yeah.
Had a heart attack and, he died a few years later.
He was such a good character in Angel.
He was such a good... He played Lorne, didn't he? He was a green guy. But anyway, we've digressed. But I thought I really want to share that story because it's such a special memory that I have of Andy Hallett and Monica Lewinsky, that little connection. But anyway, 1995, we're about to meet Monica Lewinsky. So a brand new group of interns have shown up at the White House. And among them is a young psychology major named Monica Lewinsky. Now, she only took the internship because she didn't quite get the grades that she needed to do a PhD. And so she was looking for another way to advance her career. What she didn't realize at the time was that this was going to be an internship that was going to change her life forever. So at the time, Monica's just 22. Remember, the midterms have just happened, right? And the Republicans had managed to kind of take control of a big majority of the House. This meant that it was easier for them to block whatever they could to make things difficult for the government. This included government spending, which ultimately led to a government shutdown.
Right.
As a result, all government employees were sent home until an agreement could be reached, leaving kind of essentially the White House operating on a skeleton staff. And since interns weren't paid, they were still allowed to work.
And cheap labor.
And cheap labor, yeah, that's it. Which meant that Monica and other interns had way more access to areas of the White House that they normally wouldn't have.
Ah, okay.
So Monica's office was right next door to Bill Clinton's, and with most of the staff at home, the atmosphere was just way more relaxed than usual. Bill was essentially just kind of twiddling his thumbs, negotiating, kind of...
Twiddling his thumbs.
Twiddling his thumbs. Yeah, that's it. He can't do anything, right? So he's just waiting for this deadlock to come to an end. So he's just having meetings with various people around the office. Monica would see him wandering around, taking calls, meeting with executives. And while all this is happening, she's really starstruck by him. Like, he's this great, charismatic guy. Remember, Bill Clinton won his election on that charisma and charm. People were drawn to him. Many people said that he had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. And so, like, naturally, Monica being 22, she's not going to be immune to those charms, right?
Yeah, and I guess you're just, he's a important man in power and everything like that.
Who doesn't like a bit of power? Who doesn't like a gentle spanking and a man in power? I do.
Okay.
I think there should be more spanking in this house, Adam.
So what were you saying?
So basically they start exchanging flirtatious glances, and eventually this evolves into flirtatious chat, and over time it leads to more intimate encounters. One night, specifically, while she was bringing something to the chief of staff's office, she sees Bill Clinton in the Oval Office by himself. She pops her head round and they just have some small talk. Now, how the conversation shifted to what I'm about to say, I don't know. But she says, "Do you want to see how much higher my G-string is than my pants?"
What?
So she lifts up the back of her jacket and the back of her shirt. Remember, this is the 1990s, a time when having your G-string much higher than your pants was a whole look. It was almost like a competition to see how much separation you could get between the two. And clearly, this was something that Monica had mastered and was clearly proud of.
Very good at it.
Yeah.
I remember there was a scene in Smack the Pony where they all have like their G-string really high up, and like one pulls it all over their shoulders, don't they? Because it's that big.
Like, that's the mankini.
Yeah. But that is crazy. So what are they talking about? So how was your day? Yeah, it was really good, thank you. Blah, blah, blah. Busy meetings, blah, blah, blah. What's on tomorrow? Blah. I've got a meeting at 10.
Yeah.
I've got lunch at 12.
Yeah.
And she's just like, yeah. Do you want to see my G-string?
Yeah. Let's talk about something I can relate to. My G-string. I guess I've got not much in common. And this is probably one thing that they do have in common.
It's a good icebreaker, isn't it?
It is such a good icebreaker. This would be totally the thing I would bring up if I was 22.
And you were wearing a G-string.
Because I'm really socially awkward, right? So I'm like, I need something to say, I need something to say. First thing that comes to mind, do you want to see how high my G-string is compared to my trousers? I would totally say that.
Okay.
So they have a giggle about it, and this was the first openly flirtatious moment that they have together. So she goes back to her desk, but later that night, while she was walking past the office, Bill calls her in again, and this time she tells him, "I have a serious crush on you. You know that." And she tells him that she even told her mum about how much she was enjoying working there because of him. So they laugh, and he says, do you want to see my private office? Which she says, yes. So he takes her into his side office and they share a little kiss. And it only lasts a few seconds because Monica says like people are going to notice that she's away from her desk. So she leaves. But then again, obviously Bill can't get her out of his mind. So through his secretary, Betty Curry, so she's going to play quite an important role in their affair, essentially. Monica is then summoned back to his office, and this time they have a full-blown make-out session. There's touching and everything. And for Monica, this is really exciting. Like, I'm getting really giddy for her. Like, I can imagine how exciting this must have been. I understand the dynamics at play here, but go, girl. Get it. He's the president of the United States.
So
get you some.
You've never said that before in your life.
No, I haven't. Damn it.
But so are you saying she's the one that instigated this kind of liaison?
No. Let me put it this way. Right. This is a consensual relationship. Nothing would have happened unless Bill was also wanting it to happen.
Sure.
She could have wanted it as much more than him. It wouldn't have happened unless Bill allowed it to happen.
Sure.
He's the president of the United States. He's the one in power here.
So he's not coerced her or anything against her will. She's all for this at this moment in time.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
So it's important to note that even though this was the beginning of their physical relationship, it would never go beyond the White House. This was purely a workplace affair. But Monica becomes to believe that there is something more between them. She doesn't fully understand at 22 that there are these power dynamics at play, but she's all in and she's really excited. And what's wild is that this whole situation was being facilitated by Bill Clinton's presidential secretary, a woman named Betty Curry. Most of the time when the two would meet, it would be through Betty, who would contact Monica from her desk to come and see the president. And it was always on Bill's terms. Monica had very little control in the situation.
I wonder what Betty thought about this then, because she was like, oh, I've got to arrange an affair, or I don't know. It's not really a meeting, is it?
Yeah. I don't know what was going through Betty's mind. I guess she can't not do it.
I guess so, yeah. She's like, he's the boss. But maybe if this isn't the first president she's worked under, and maybe she isn't.
It's the norm.
It's the norm a little bit. Like, I've got to fix this.
Fallout of the 1960s Mad Men kind of era, where everyone's having an affair. Oh, that makes me sad.
It's Betty's job.
Yeah, probably. And so I want to just add in a little bit of a detail here, because it might seem like too much information, but it's actually a really important bit of information. Because each time Bill Clinton and Monica would be together, Bill would never finish, because I think he believed that by not reaching a climax ever, he wasn't technically cheating, and somehow this gave him some kind of moral standing. And I point this out only because when he finally does climax, he will end their relationship. It's strange, isn't it? It's really odd. But in total, Monica and Bill, they have about 10 encounters over a span of 18 months. That was it. It wasn't this full-blown, all-consuming love affair that the media made it out to be. It was just nothing. But I guess to Monica being 22, it was kind of everything.
So I see how it was a 10-part series now. Because if it ended in a climax...
What? What?
Well, I just... Yeah, like...
Adam, life isn't a Netflix drama.
Like, that was the finale. Show's over.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, back to the story. Okay. Ignore my comment.
So, Adam, it's now 1996, and Bill Clinton is getting ready for his re-election campaign. Clintons are in a strong position. The economy is still doing really well. And his campaign slogan is literally building a bridge to the 21st century. Mm-hmm. And it's looking like it's going to be a slam dunk. They're going to win, man. But there was a problem. They needed to make sure that there was nothing that could potentially risk their success. One potential issue, however, was that people in the White House were starting to notice that Monica Lewinsky was getting a little too close to the president. And I don't think anyone knew the full extent of what was happening, maybe except obviously Betty, yeah. But there was a concern that this could potentially become a problem for the campaign if rumors started to swirl, especially since Clinton had a history of cheating on Hillary, right?
It's like, Bill, you haven't done anything bad, have you?
Bill, look at me. Bill, did you punk on someone's dress? Maybe that's like their natural routine daily.
It's like, Bill, you've behaved today, haven't you?
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Yeah. So what they do is they decide to move Monica to the Pentagon. Now, Clinton breaks the news to her, but he promises her that if he wins, he will bring her back to the White House. But for now, she just needs to go to the Pentagon. So naturally, Monica, she's heartbroken. She goes back to her hotel apartment at the Watergate. By the way, that's where she's staying. Throughout her entire internship, she is living in the Watergate, where the famous Watergate scandal took place.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah.
So she comes from money, man. Her parents are funding her to stay in this hotel apartment.
I was going to say, because an intern, you're probably not getting paid at all, right? Or low pay.
Yeah.
Why doesn't she just get an apartment? Surely it's cheaper than a hotel.
Yeah, I don't know. Too much money. Maybe it's just inconsequential to them. So basically, her job at the Pentagon was going to be accompanying the Secretary of Defense on various business trips. Bill Clinton would still call her sometimes, but it would always kind of seem to happen after she had just bumped into him at kind of like a White House event or something. Mm-hmm. But in between those encounters, she just wasn't on his radar at all. So Monica realizes she needs to keep herself in his peripheral view. So she would kind of show up at all these different events, knowing that if he saw her, then just a few days later, he would call her. And like clockwork, that's exactly what happened. So men are just so predictable. And remember, Monica is completely infatuated with Bill. It's sweet, but also like, girl, like, he's really not into you.
Well, not using, but you're still a piece on the side at the end of the day.
Yeah.
He's not serious. And it does feel like he is leading her on.
I don't even think he's even leading her on. It's just more convenient for him. Like, he's there.
Well, for him, it's like transactional, but for her, it's obviously more romantic.
That is it. At one point, this just goes to show you how infatuated she was. She places an ad in the Washington Post's Lonely Heart section on Valentine's Day, and it's addressed to Handsome, which is how she would kind of address him. And it quotes like a Romeo and Juliet quote. I'll try and read it. I'm not very good at Shakespeare, but she goes, "With love's light wings, I do approach these walls, for stony limits cannot hold love out. And what can love do that dares love attend?" So, man, she is in full-blown crush mode.
Yeah, and the fact that he hasn't shut that down, I don't know. I don't think that's right.
Definitely not right. Like, I felt giddy for her when she was sucking off the president in the Oval Office because that was fun. But now that she's moved on and she's like desperately trying to win his affections and be on his radar, it's now become sad and I feel real bad for her. But she's 22, man.
Yeah, she's young and I guess, maybe she thinks, there's a real chance something could happen here, it feels like. But we just know that he's probably being a bit manipulative and a bit of a dick. Possibly doing this with other women as well.
Probably, yeah.
What a piece of crap.
Shit, he's a scumbag. So meanwhile, at the Pentagon, Monica makes friends with a much older woman called Linda Tripp. Linda Tripp, basically, she was also shipped off to the Pentagon because she too was a problem for the Clinton administration. Basically, Linda had worked under Reagan and she stayed on through the Clinton administration. So when Vince Foster's suspicious suicide happened, she started asking questions. So the administration wanted to keep her out of the way. So what they did is they gave her a $20,000 kind of pay rise and they shipped her off to the Pentagon. So basically, the Pentagon was a dumping ground for problematic women under the Clinton administration.
Really?
So as their friendship developed, Monica starts confiding in Linda about this man that she is seeing at the White House. She's very careful to not mention any names. She doesn't want Bill to obviously get in trouble. She just needs someone to kind of talk about what she's going through.
And I guess someone that's at work will know some of the protocols or whatever and things like that. You need someone you can just confide in at work and just, I don't know, have a moan, have a bitch, whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's it. You just want to kind of like rubber duck someone, essentially, where you can just, where you talk at them and then it helps you rationalize what you're thinking and stuff.
Probably can't do that as easily with friends or family.
Exactly. So throughout all of these conversations, Linda Tripp doesn't really know who this man is. She just knows that he's someone very high up in the White House. When Linda Tripp listens, Monica expresses like just this whirlwind of emotion. Like she loves him, she hates him, she's frustrated. Everything happens on his terms. And it feels like emotional roller coaster to Linda Tripp, who's kind of sitting there listening, trying to be a good friend. Monica even shares her plans of like how she would kind of just try and casually bump into this mystery man. And one of those moments is after the election where Clinton, of course, wins the re-election. And Monica attends the inauguration ball in this beautiful red gown, and she's forced to stand there watching him dance with his wife to Nat King Cole's famous song Unforgettable. And she tells Linda how heartbreaking that was just to have to sit there and be forced to watch it. Linda doesn't know that she's actually referring to that iconic first dance between Bill and Hillary Clinton at the inauguration ball. Of course, Bill notices her that night, and a few days later, like clockwork, Betty Curry summons Monica to the White House. Monica arrives wearing this beautiful blue navy dress. And Bill takes her into his side office while Betty stands guard in the dining room. And he gives her a copy of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, which is obviously filled with loads of dirty sexual kind of poetry. It was once banned, I believe, in America. And he also gives her a hat pin. Then he takes her into the bathroom and they do their usual sexy thing. Remember, Bill never finishes because otherwise he'd be cheating, right?
I'm pretty sure he's cheating already. But yeah. Like, come on, Bill. I mean, well, don't.
This time, however, he comes close and he pulls away. And Monica's like, no, like, I really want to do this for you. And he says, I don't trust you enough for that.
Does he?
Yeah, he says that.
He trusts her enough to do this, but just not to go all the way.
Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And then all of a sudden, he just spaffs on her dress. I guess he comes really close and he leaves a very noticeable stain on it. I know.
Okay.
I mean, I'm still excited by it, but I know. I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's Bill. Bill's done the deed. And so this is this is the last time for him because he's like, oh, you know, I've overstepped the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this moment is important because in Clinton's twisted logic, he's convinced himself that as long as he doesn't climax, he wasn't technically cheating. But now that he's climaxed, he's feeling guilty. And so soon after this, he calls Monica and he ends their relationship.
Wow. And I guess she's like, what?
Yeah.
I'm really pissed.
Yes.
And
so
what did she do about the dress stain?
Well, we're going to come on to that. So, of course, she's devastated. And, of course, she's also angry. Because remember, Bill promised to bring her back to the White House if he won the election.
Yes.
That hasn't happened. And now he's broken things off. So she writes a formal letter to him stating, Dear Sir, instead of like the regular, hey, handsome. And she tells him that if he wasn't going to give her the job that he had promised, that she was then going to leave Washington and she's going to move to New York. And if she did that, she would have to explain to her parents why. God.
That feels a bit like, I'm going to have to tell them what happened.
I'm telling my mum. I'll tell her.
I mean, is that the logic she went with? Okay,
Yeah,
carry
apparently.
on. Yeah.
So naturally, Clinton panics. He calls his friend and lawyer, a guy called Vernon Jordan, and he gets him to arrange a job for Monica at Revlon in New York. Now, it's around about this time that Linda Tripp finds out who this mysterious man is, right? Turns out that, in fact, her friend Monica is sleeping or doing these things with the President of the United States. And now
Did Monica actually say that? I guess things have ended and she's kind of like, oh, she's let it slip, I guess, at some point.
From my understanding, yes. And now that she knows everything down to kind of the exact details of the blue dress, right? She advises Monica not to have it cleaned and to keep it as an insurance policy should anything go wrong.
Ooh.
Because she knows about like her writing a letter saying like, I need a job. You promised to bring me back to the White House. So she's like, okay, things might not pan out as you planned. Keep the dress, insurance policy.
Wow, smart Linda.
Is it?
Well, I don't know. I guess you don't know. You could be like ostracized, or he could like complain about her and that she never gets a job again.
Yeah.
As I understand, her parents are like, why would you ever quit a job in the White House?
Yeah.
And so she needs to make sure that she does continue on in her career.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
He got his.
I think she got hers too. Not in the end. She got hers short term. Yeah, I feel bad for her. I need to stop glorifying what's happened.
Yeah.
It was fun to begin with. Now
It's actually very sad because I know what comes her way is quite horrible.
Exactly. So I'll draw a line in the sand now. It was fun to begin with. Now it's getting serious.
Yeah.
So this is where Linda starts to play a real pivotal role in the story. Remember, Linda had previously worked at the White House, right, under Vince Foster in the years before, obviously, his suicide. She was angry with how the situation was handled following, obviously, Vince Foster's death. But she was also now resentful that she was being shipped off to the Pentagon. So she had real beef with the Clinton administration. And now that she knew that Monica's secret was that she was doing that with the president, she decided to reach out to a friend of hers who was also a conservative literary agent called Lucille Goldberg. Now, Linda floated the idea of writing a book which might expose the White House for what they really were, right? But at the time, Lucille wasn't interested. She didn't think that the story was compelling enough. That was until Linda said that she had a friend that was also having an affair with Bill Clinton. And Lucille is like, now that's compelling.
Ooh, tell me more.
Ooh.
Scandalous.
Yes. So she advises Linda to start recording their conversations. But the problem is that in New York, where Lucille is from, recording conversations without consent, completely illegal. But in Maryland, where Linda was, it wasn't.
That's so weird to have that so different by state.
Yeah, I mean, they do have their own laws and stuff. But yeah, so it's not allowed. But obviously she doesn't know this at that time. So Linda, of course, goes off to Radio Shack. She buys a tape recorder and she starts recording every conversation between her and Monica from that moment on. And in total, there's 22 hours of recorded content.
Wow.
And she hands over all of those recordings to the feds. What a betrayal.
Yeah, Linda, I thought you had Monica's best interest.
Exactly. She doesn't. I'm going to flat out say she doesn't. Bitch. So we need to check in with a few things at this point.
Okay.
Right? Remember Paula Jones and the sexual harassment claim, right? Well, you will recall that Clinton's lawyer, Bob Bennett, tried to get temporary immunity until Clinton was out of office. Mm-hmm. Well, that finally, after loads of arguing, goes to the Supreme Court in 1997. And they reject this notion of immunity, which is exactly what you said. Like, how could they do that? The Supreme Court agrees. And that means that this case can proceed after all.
So 1997, is that 2 years into his second term?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, 97? Yeah, we're well in.
Okay.
We're well in. So Paula's lawyers draw up a $700,000 settlement and they send it to Clinton's legal team, who make some amendments to kind of this settlement. Mm-hmm. And when it comes back, Paula isn't happy with it, so she rejects the offer. And the issue is that she wanted Bill Clinton to read a statement out on television, but the changes that they make to the language in that statement don't really sit well with her. So it's just no deal for her. So Paula's team start planning a trial, and they even threaten that they're going to make everything public because you have to remember, like, Paula's image has taken a major hit. Remember, this was a victim of an alleged sexual assault, and yet the media portray her as this dumb hick or like kind of trailer trash. Comedians are constantly mocking her with kind of these exaggerated kind of southern accents, and the press write just relentless, salacious articles about her. We forget that back in the 90s, like, victim blaming was very common. People thought that she must have seduced him in order to try and bring him down. So it was crucial to Paula that Clinton's statement that she wanted him to read out acknowledges his wrongdoing because her reputation was on the line.
Yeah, and I guess she's had probably a lot of trouble since then. And she's the one that's actually had the most moral standing in all of this.
Yeah. So they start preparing to go public, but before they can do that, Paula needs a bit of a makeover if people are going to take her more seriously. So they hire a team to work on her image. She gets lessons on how to sound less Southern.
Isn't that crap?
That is really crap.
It really annoys me that they go, people aren't going to believe you. You need to get a haircut. You need to dress like this or whatever and change the way you speak. I just think that's horrible. Just believe someone who they are.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the way that the world worked back then. I'm not justifying it. That's just the way it was. This is why PR teams exist, right? They need to work on your image. They need to orchestrate how the public is going to perceive something.
I can understand that if you're going to be a president or whatever, a position of power, you've got to lead people and everything else.
Yeah.
But this is someone who's defending herself for something that happened to her. That shouldn't need to happen.
Exactly. 100%. So she's just been coached on how to conduct herself in front of cameras. And her lawyers knew that this was going to be very difficult because all they had was her word against his. So their goal was to instead try and prove that Clinton's behavior was actually part of a pattern rather than trying to prove that he'd actually did this.
Fine. So that lends more credibility if he's done this more than once.
Exactly. So what they were going to need to do was speak to more women that Clinton had been involved with. Mm-hmm. So the press are all on standby for all the details of who these women were. One person on their list doesn't want to go public. And when the press Paula's lawyers about who she might be, the only clue they give is that her husband had committed suicide.
Really?
Yes. So this is when a guy called Michael Isikoff, he is a reporter for Newsweek. He thinks that he can use this information to try and figure out who this woman was. And he tracks down a young widow called Kathleen Wiley. But when he contacts her, she refuses to speak to him and instead tells him to contact a woman that she had confided in following the assault. That woman was Linda Tripp.
Ah, Linda.
Linda
Bloody
again.
Linda.
So Isikoff reaches out to Linda. Linda tells him that after Kathleen's husband started working for the Clintons in 1992, so at the very beginning of his presidency, she began volunteering in the First Lady's office. And basically her job was like helping with state dinners and similar events like that, working with kind of Hillary Clinton. But a year later, when her husband was facing serious financial trouble, which of course led to his suicide, Kathleen went to Bill Clinton to ask for a paid position to try and help bring some money into their household. Kathleen claims that it was during that meeting that Clinton made unsolicited sexual advances towards her. But before it went any further, an aide knocked on the door, which allowed Kathleen to then make an escape. And so feeling shaken, she confided in Linda about what had happened. Now, Isikoff was like, this is a good scoop. To which Linda says, if you like that, you're going to love this.
Why is everyone confiding in Linda? Clearly she's a good ear or, to speak to. But actually she's going to rat you out.
Yeah, she will. So she's like, if you like that, you're going to love this. And she tells him about Monica and Bill and these secret tapes. This is when Isikoff is like, these tapes are completely illegal and they cannot be used in court. And this is where Linda's like, fuck, I've been recording all these tapes and now they can't be used. So what's she going to do?
Don't know, but surely she's going to find a way for them to be used.
She does. So meanwhile, again, like I said, a lot's going on here. We're going to jump back now to the Paula Jones trial. So while the Paula Jones trial is underway, women who had sexual contact with Bill Clinton were being deposed, which means basically they get brought to a room, they press record, they record them, they give their statements in this fashion.
And they all say Bill's got a wonky penis.
So Linda knows that she's got these tapes that really incriminate Bill Clinton, but she can't just hand them over because she's obviously obtained them illegally. She realizes that the only thing that she can do is somehow get herself subpoenaed in the Paula Jones case. This way, she can get immunity against prosecution for making the tapes.
Really?
So in November 1997, Linda gets a call from Paula Jones's lawyers and they agree to subpoena her. For Linda, it's important that it looks like Linda Tripp has been blindsided so that she can act shocked and defensive, pretending to protect Monica Lewinsky, who is supposed to be her friend.
But she's orchestrated this.
Yes. Yeah. So now that they have these tapes, it means that they are now interested in speaking with Monica. Right. So Bill Clinton sees somehow that magically, all of a sudden, out of the blue, Monica's name is now on this witness list. And he calls her and he tells her he doesn't think that she's going to be called or subpoenaed, but he says that if she does, she can sign an affidavit and won't have to actually be deposed and be in a room with these people. She can just sign a written statement and then send that in and sign it. So he doesn't ask her to lie, but he also doesn't encourage her to tell the truth. So Monica gets a subpoena. She panics because the subpoena specifically asks her to produce the hat pin that he had given her as a gift. So her first question is, how does the Paula Jones inquiry know that I got this gift?
Yeah.
So she naturally calls her old friend Linda Tripp and tells her all about it. Of course, Linda records the entire conversation.
It's like, hang on a minute, let me just turn off the kettle.
Yeah, just hang on. In a minute.
There's clunking
What's that weird
sounds?
noise? Yeah. Oh, nothing, just the washing machine. So once that conversation happens, Monica then calls Vernon Jordan. She is the lawyer friend of Bill Clinton who got her the job at Revlon. He tells her not to panic and that they call this just a vanilla subpoena, which will just ask two questions. Did you have sex with the president? And did he ask for it?
I mean, that'll do it.
So he puts her in touch with a lawyer called Frank Carter who says that she can just sign an affidavit. He'll send that to her. She won't have to be deposed in person. She can just sign that document and that will be it. It'll be over. So a few days later, Betty Currie, Clinton's obviously secretary, arranges a little Christmas visit between Monica and Bill. So of course they're supposed to be over at this moment in time, but I think because of in light of everything that's happening, I don't know if Monica sees this, but it's clear that Bill is just trying to sweeten her in case it gets any further.
Fine, I guess. Does she hate him at this point, or maybe just, over him, but still is happy to entertain
she's hopeful.
this?
That's probably the best way of saying it. She's hopeful.
Hopeful, okay.
So during this visit, Bill Clinton gives her more gifts. And this has really messed up because at the end of this latest kind of little meeting, she has to hand the gifts back over to Betty because she knows she can't keep them just in case the lawyers come looking for them.
That seems pointless.
It does seem pointless. I don't know. I guess maybe he already bought the gifts. I don't know. So now for a little bit of a segue, because while all this is happening, Kenneth Starr, remember, he's the guy who's doing the Whitewater investigation, right?
Right.
This is still continuing. It's not looking good for them. And there's even talks about giving up on the case because they still haven't been able to prove that Clinton had funneled money into their campaign at the start of his presidency, right? It's just nothing. There's nothing there. But then seemingly out of the blue, Kenneth Starr contacts Linda Tripp, and almost as magic, the Paula Jones case and the Whitewater case have now somehow connected themselves together, which I will explain in a bit. But Linda Tripp basically tells him that Monica Lewinsky has been subpoenaed in the Paula Jones case and tells them that Monica and Bill have been discussing what they were going to be saying in the affidavit and that they've both agreed to lie under oath.
Wow, she's a right blabbermouth.
Yeah, but that's the key thing here, right?
And does she want Bill out then? It feels like she's definitely got like a thing against him.
She's got a vendetta against him based on how she's been treated in the whole Vince Foster suicide and how that was dealt with.
Yeah, okay.
But the key thing is here is that these two previously unrelated things, the Paula Jones case and the Whitewater investigation, have now magically connected themselves because Kenneth Starr has just randomly called Linda Tripp out of the blue.
That doesn't feel like... Was it random? Or did someone like tip him off?
It seems random at the moment, but we'll talk about why in a little bit, how they become connected.
Is it Betty? Betty's like blabbed. Like, that's it. I want out of this.
I want out. And basically, like I said, Linda has told him that they have now discussed their affidavit and that they're both going to lie under oath. So this is the smoking gun that Kenneth Starr needs to nail the president because this is witness tampering, essentially, and it's also obstruction of justice in a criminal case. So Kenneth Starr gives Linda full immunity and she hands over the tapes and she tells them also about the magical blue dress. They now know that that exists. They then ask Linda to meet with Monica wearing a wire, hoping to get a clear recording of their conversation, admitting to the affair, proving that Monica's affidavit was a lie. But the problem is, Kenneth Starr's investigation does not have jurisdiction over the Paula Jones case.
Right.
Remember, the investigation focused on Whitewater, and other matters is where
This fits
other
in.
matters comes into play. Because basically, Starr reaches out to Janet Reno, the Attorney General, and she reluctantly agrees to expand the jurisdiction to include the Paula Jones's case. And now Kenneth Starr knows that Bill will lie under oath in the Paula Jones deposition, and this will finally give them grounds to impeach him, the exact thing that the Republicans had been aiming for from the very, very start. Because remember, they couldn't make the Whitewater work.
So they're not going to be able to nail him on that, but this, they'll be able to nail him for just lying under oath.
Hence, other matters is now part of the equation.
I see.
Sneaky, isn't it? So Linda calls Monica. She tells her that she too has been subpoenaed in the Paula Jones's case and is worried about lying under oath. Remember, Linda knows about the affair. So if she's going to protect Monica, she'll have to lie. And Monica panics and she persuades Linda to lie for her when she gets subpoenaed and deposed, and even offers to help her kind of through the process, saying that she knows a guy who helped her with her affidavit. That's Vernon Jones, she called, and that he can do the same for Linda. So on January the 13th, 1998, they meet for lunch at the Ritz-Carlton in Pensacola City, which is, I believe, just below where she's staying. It's like a big complex. And they're going to discuss signing the affidavit. Linda is, of course, wearing a wire. Monica is visibly emotional. And Linda is, of course, under a lot of pressure to get this recording. So she's really nervous. At one point, while they're sitting chatting, Linda's kind of microphone kind of slips down. And she can tell that Linda's a little bit shaken up. She becomes a little bit suspicious. Linda has to then nip off to fix the microphone. And while she's away, Monica then rifles through her handbag. But it's in that moment that the FBI suspect that Linda has botched the whole effort. And so they send agents down to escort Monica to room 102 at the Ritz-Carlton, where members of Kenneth Starr's team are waiting to interrogate her.
Right. So at the moment, I'm guessing they haven't got a full confession through Linda because she's messed up. And therefore, but she must have said enough, Monica, on this tape for them to call her into an interrogation.
God knows. I think they've just panicked and they're like, okay, we just need to rescue this. Linda's been a dud. Let's just bring her into this room. We're going to interrogate her. We're going to convince her that she doesn't need a lawyer. We're just going to get this information that we need from her.
Okay. Are they allowed to do that, I guess?
No, not really.
Oh.
So there's a moment where Linda Tripp is still there, right? And she is like, great, you've got her. I can now go. And Monica is like, insists, like, Linda, you are coming with me. You pretended to be my friend and you betrayed me. Now you can sit and watch exactly what happens next. So there's this awkward moment where Monica Lewinsky is being interrogated about all these things that Linda Tripp has told these people, and she has to sit there and listen to it, all the while knowing that Monica knows now that Linda is the one who dobbed her in.
Wow.
Eesh.
I did not know, someone dobbed her in. And I thought perhaps, I did not know the length of this story.
And it's so complicated, right? There's all these different things that are happening. You've got the Paula Jones cases happening. You've got this Whitewater investigation happening. You've got Linda Tripp, who's got her own agenda. You've got the Republicans who are like trying to get dirt on the presidency. It's just a mess.
Yeah.
So Monica's held in that room 102 for 11 hours while the FBI interrogate her. They tell her that she could be charged for signing a false affidavit and witness tampering, but they will give her immunity if she agrees to wear a wire during a future conversation with Bill, Betty Curry, or Vernon Jordan. She, of course, refuses, and she asks for her lawyer, Frank Carter, who is connected to Bill. So, of course, the FBI refuse and say that if we contact your lawyer, all he is going to do is just tell Bill Clinton. So they completely refuse because they want to make sure that Bill Clinton still goes ahead and lies under oath because he is going to be deposed in just 12 hours' time. So this all needs to be a secret. Word cannot get back to Bill.
Are they going to have to hold her hostage so she doesn't say anything?
It looks like that way. Yeah. So Monica says, if I can't call my lawyer, can I at least call my mum? And the FBI deny that request as well. And they threaten that if she isn't careful, they will prosecute her mother as well. And eventually Monica is allowed to reach out to her mother, who then jumps on a train. Her mother then calls her father, who then contacts their family lawyer, who is a guy called Bill Ginsburg, who then advises her to just leave the hotel room since you are not under arrest and do not sign anything. Do not accept any immunity deal. Just get out of that hotel room.
Why don't accept any immunity deal then? Is it just because this could backfire?
It could backfire. There could be an entrapment there. Just we don't know the situation.
Right.
Like you need a lawyer there. You don't have one there. Just get out. You're not under arrest. Don't answer any questions.
Mm-hmm. This must be really scary.
Yeah. For a 22-year-old, but these government agents like the FBI. God. So now it's the next day. Bill Clinton, completely unaware of any of these developments, walked into his deposition on the Paula Jones case. Mm-hmm. So he appears unflustered. He's in full control of the room. Paula Jones is present. She's staring him down like she's determined to make him tell the truth. But interestingly, the judge in the case has instructed the legal team conducting the deposition that they are not allowed to ask any questions that might embarrass the president. This means that they can't use any language that directly inquires about sexual activities. So to get around this, they use a chart with written definitions of sexual contact. So instead of reading out specific acts, like did so-and-so give you a gobby? No, they've got to point to a chart and then kind of he will agree or deny it, but they can't physically say the words.
So did you do cell B2? And he's got to look at it and go, no, didn't do that one.
Yes.
That one down there? No, I didn't do that.
Yeah, that's essentially what happened.
Wow.
So out of the 77 acts listed on these charts, I know, Clinton admits to one, and that was the one involving Jennifer Flowers, which everyone knew about. She was obviously the woman that he'd already acknowledged having an affair with years before he became president, right?
Right, okay.
When it comes to Kathleen Wiley's testimony, he denies any wrongdoing. He says, that poor woman, she's been through a lot with her husband's suicide. And as an interesting side note, it was the night that Clinton allegedly assaulted Kathleen that her husband killed himself.
Really? But we don't know if it's because of that. It's the money problem.
It was because of the money problems. But if this was a podcast about conspiracy theories, this would be a significant discussion point because, of course, as we talked about earlier on, the Clintons have got all these conspiracy, speculation-y things about them killing people.
Yeah.
But it just so happened that he committed suicide on the night that this happened.
Right.
Harsh, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Clinton just maintains that on the night that she approached him, he just embraced her, he kissed her on the forehead, and she's just misunderstood his intentions. But he insists there was like nothing sexual involved.
But even kissing on a forehead, someone that you work with.
It's still more innocent than like, I don't know, grabbing her by the pussy. I don't know. I don't know what he did. Then the lawyers ask, have you ever been alone with a woman called Monica Lewinsky in the Oval Office? Obviously, this doesn't surprise him because he knows that there's an affidavit there. So he replies no. However, this changes when they start asking about gifts that they've exchanged. He realizes that the only way they could know about the gifts is if Monica had been talking. Because remember, they only asked 2 questions. Did you have sex? And did he ask for it? This is outside of that realm. So it's at this moment during the recording of that deposition that you can kind of sense that his confidence just kind of wanes. And this is the first time that he utters those famous words. I had no sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky. So it's now on tape. So outside of the deposition, Michael Isiakoff, he's the journalist from Newsweek. He is preparing to publish the story about Monica Lewinsky and the tapes on that very same day that the deposition is happening. But at the last minute, they decide not to because they get word that Clinton may have perjured himself under oath. So they don't want to kind of publish the story in case they get some facts wrong. So they hold back on the story, but there's someone else who is willing to be far less cautious. And that's a man named Matt Drudge, who runs the Drudge Report on what we now call the internet, which at the time in 1998 was a kind of brand new technology. So remember Lucille Goldberg? She was the literary agent who had advised Linda Tripp to make the recordings. So she finds out that Newsweek have decided to shelve the story. And she contacts Matt Drudge and she tells him about this article that they were planning on releasing but have decided to hold back. And remember, the internet was largely unregulated at the time. So Matt Drudge publishes the information that Newsweek was sitting on this huge story, and soon everyone knows. Shortly after that, the Washington Post, they become the first kind of mainstream media outlet to publish the story, bringing this whole kind of idea of the affair between Monica Lewinsky and the President of the United States to the public's attention. This is where they first hear about it.
So the Washington Post only publishes it because it was posted on the internet.
That's right.
Story.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the idea is that no one wants to be the first to publish it in case they get accused of being like the source of it all. But because it's on the internet,
They can just say, oh, a source, or this was reported on this. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, whatever. Okay.
So following this, the day before Clinton is due to address the State of the Union on January the 26th, which is going to be hosted by his good friend Kevin Spacey. Now, I'll let you make your mind up about what that says about Bill Clinton and the friends that he's kept. So he goes on live television and he repeats those famous words. He says, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Okay, it's not quite that.
Did I sound a bit special?
You did sound special.
And the thing is, though, this is such a shame because he uses the words, that woman. This is a huge blow to Monica. Remember, for Monica, this was love. And to hear those words, that woman, he suddenly seems to have just kind of severed any ties with her. And it just comes across really cold. Hillary Clinton then gives this now iconic TV interview where she talks about a vast right-wing conspiracy that is hell-bent on bringing down her husband ever since he announced that he was running for president. And the thing is, she's not wrong, Adam. Yes, Bill was a sleazeball, but politically, there really was this coordinated right-wing effort to destroy him. Of course, Republicans framed it as kind of moral justice for these women, but we all know now that it was never really about them at all. It was about scoring political points. Now, remember how the Paula Jones case and the Whitewater investigation, they were originally separate, right? But somehow they've become connected when Kenneth Starr just randomly contacts Linda Tripp out of the blue. How did he know to contact her?
Someone must have, I don't know, gave him some information, right?
Right-wing conspiracy. So let me explain. So there is this network of Republican lawyers who are all closely following the Paula Jones's case, right? These same people are very heavily invested in the success of the Whitewater investigation, hoping that it will dig up some dirt on the Clintons. But of course, after time, they just hit a dead end and they come up with nothing, right? And this is kind of like a cycle. It's going on for years and years and years. It's getting to the point where they're thinking about just shelving the whole investigation. So these Republican lawyers, they were known as the Elves, and they were the ones who told Kenneth Starr about Linda Tripp and the tapes via the Paula Jones case. So they the ones who decided to tip off Kenneth Starr.
I see.
And they were even the ones who advised him on how to expand the Whitewater investigation to include other matters.
Right. So they're saying this is how there's a loophole and how you can class it into that investigation. So those lawyers obviously have a vested interest being tied with the Republicans.
That's it. And just like that, Starr's investigation gets a whole new lease on life. So Hillary wasn't far off. This vast conspiracy was actually real. And these elves were funding and pushing the anti-Clinton movement behind the scenes. We know that these elves included people like Brett Kavanaugh, who is now Supreme Court Justice appointed by Donald Trump, George Conway as well, who is famously Kellyanne Conway's kind of husband. They were all part of this effort, and they used Paula Jones's case to set Clinton up in essentially a perjury trap. They didn't care about Paula Jones at all. It was about manipulating the situation for political gain, and justice just wasn't the driving force behind any of this.
So now that the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, had Paula's case been resolved? Was that still ongoing then?
No, so that's still going on. It's about to. So following Hillary Clinton's TV interview, Bill Clinton addresses the Democrat Party at the State of the Union, and everyone just shows their support. Nobody turns against him. Honestly, at this point, Adam, Clinton could have admitted to the affair with Monica, just like he had done with others in the past. If he had owned up, there wouldn't have been the scandal anymore. Like, there wouldn't have been this perjury trap. There would be no impeachment. It wouldn't have given Kenneth Starr's investigation the ammunition it needed. But he didn't. And this is why I said earlier on, it's possibly because he had told Hillary this hadn't happened.
Right, so he could have admitted rather than lying under oath, and he would have got pardoned for that?
I think it just wouldn't have been a case, right?
Okay.
So meanwhile, as all this unfolds in the media, Monica and her mother, they're held up at the Watergate apartment with the press kind of completely surrounding the hotel. Awful things are just being said about them in the media. The press even end up finding her old high school teacher who she'd once had an affair with. They put him in front of a press conference, and he claims that all she constantly did was just talk about sex, and how she even joked about going to DC to get her presidential knee pads.
Yeah, I guess they're just making her out to be way worse.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, she shouldn't have perhaps entertained this. She was, I don't know, she was just infatuated. Yeah, she did make a mistake, but it doesn't seem like she's some, I don't know, evil woman.
And of course, the presidential knee pads joke is completely made up. But even if it wasn't, it doesn't make Clinton the victim here at all.
No.
And that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to make her as the perpetrator.
Yeah, she's the one that like brought this on, sort of thing, and corrupted Bill Clinton, even though he's the one that's had all the affairs before.
Yeah, he's the president. He was the one who had the power in that power dynamic.
Exactly. This is your boss at the end of the day. And so therefore, he's the one that's in the wrong.
So the media, they label her as a tramp and a spoiled, troubled Jewish princess. So add some anti-Semitism into the mix.
Why even bother with that? That's just not needed. They
draw kind of comparisons to Fatal Attraction. They accuse her of zealously pursuing the president. They will slut-shaming her just for having a sexuality and being 22. If you're a promiscuous woman, you're blamed. For men, it's different, as we know. This is what Monica refers to later on as the nuts and sluts defense. You're either crazy or you're a whore. So she's never going to win this fight.
No.
So never once did they ever see her as a young woman caught up with a powerful man. They fail to acknowledge the power dynamics at play. And it's just shocking. Men usually escape scot-free, while women rarely ever do. I hope that's changing now. But even still, that stigma still is around.
I feel like that only changes when there's enough people speaking up. If it's one person, they can be silenced. Two people silenced. But then when you've got 20 people now saying the same thing, that's only when they can actually go, okay, this is actually a big enough story to take someone down. I don't know if it's changed enough.
No. So in August of 1998, Kenneth Starr brings people before a grand jury to decide if impeachment proceedings can go ahead. And it's a massive media circus. The first person to testify is Betty Curry, Clinton's secretary.
What does Betty say?
It's long and arduous. I'm not going to get into that, and I can't remember. I didn't write it down.
I was going to say, you could have just said,
No, I think Betty, she does say some interesting things, but it just wasn't anything of note. She kind of like...
I just arrange meetings. It's just my job.
Yeah, essentially. Next, Monica testifies, but she has immunity, which means that she won't get in trouble for anything that she might say.
Okay.
And that's important. There was a bit of a journey to get that, but she's finally got it. But basically, when it comes to Monica, they make her describe every single sexual act in the most minute detail. For perspective, right, this trial is about proving whether or not Bill Clinton committed perjury and lied under oath. So it just seems unnecessary for them to have to delve into such detail. It feels more like they're trying to humiliate her and, of course, him, but it's just unnecessary. They also force her to turn over the infamous blue dress with the white stain on it, which proves that they had been intimate. So when they obtain the dress, Kenneth Starr's team contact Clinton's lawyers saying that they have evidence that requires a blood sample. They don't tell them it's for the blue dress or that they even have the blue dress. And I guess they could have asked for a sperm sample rather than a blood sample, but maybe that just wasn't exactly the appropriate thing that you ask for from a sitting president.
Probably not.
Can you just spunk in this cup, please, Mr. President?
Yeah, I guess blood is fair enough. They can tell from that, right?
Yeah, but in spite of that, you still end up with this really bizarre situation where they're going to the White House in the middle of the night to get a blood sample from a sitting president to compare the DNA to a stain on a 20-year-old's dress. And of course, the results show it's Clinton's sperm.
Ooh.
Ugh.
How do you get out of this situation?
Exactly. And I can't help imagine like kind of the scene reminiscent of like daytime television shows like Trisha, where they're reading out the results of the DNA test. When they announce it's his, I envision like Hillary Clinton on one side of the room, like all devastated and crying, and Clinton looking shocked and denying it. And then Monica's on the other end just going, yeah, I told you. It just
Jerry
feels,
Springer.
Yeah, it just feels like a weird drama. But finally, in August of 1998, Bill Clinton becomes the first sitting president to testify before a grand jury investigating his conduct. And this is historic because he does something really fucking weird. He tries to play semantics and uses kind of these linguistic loopholes as a way to say that he wasn't lying during his previous deposition.
So this is the bit I think that it's jogged some memory because he's got these weird terminology for him. He wasn't having an affair because of he never came to climax. Mm-hmm. So is he now going to say, oh, that's not sexual relations. I don't class oral sex as sex.
You're almost there, yes. So basically he starts saying these encounters did not constitute sexual relations as he understood the term to be defined. Like, I'm sorry, Mr. President. Last time I checked, a willy in the mouth is definitely sexual relations.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how long sex ed has been going, but I'm pretty sure he seems to have done it enough that he should know what that's all about.
Well, I've been doing sex this whole time.
Exposing yourself? Oh, jeez.
So Paula's lawyers respond, wait a minute. During the deposition, you said there was no sexual relationship. And Clinton explains that his statement was a lie because of the word is. He clarifies that the original statement was that there is no sexual relation, meaning there was no sexual activity going on at the time in the deposition.
Has his lawyer probably said, oh, if you said it like this and we can get around this?
Yeah, essentially. Like, he is a lawyer. He comes from a lawyer background. He's got a lot of good lawyers on him. He's probably got the best lawyers in the world. So they're playing this weird semantic game.
And this is what so annoys me, because if any regular Joe would ever say this in court, they'd be like, shut up. Who's going to believe that? Who's going to buy that?
But to be fair, like, the whole court case itself is just ridiculous. Bear in mind, this is some weird political game they're trying to catch him out for lying under oath. That's it.
I think of all the money that goes into like this court and stuff like he's not there running the country. Fair enough. You could say that, okay, well, he lied under oath. What else is he lying about? Mm-hmm. That's what you could get at. I get it. But this is someone's personal life.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. And he's running a country really well.
Yeah. Although at least they thought he was. I don't know.
So after this, Clinton goes on national television and he admits that he had inappropriate relations with Monica Lewinsky. However, he insists that he believed that his answers were legally accurate.
No one else does, but
No.
sure. Whatever, Bill.
Obviously, he is ridiculed widely for this, like critics, commentators, comedians. They relentlessly mock him for this for a while. So now it's clear that impeachment is inevitable. And Kenneth Starr must now turn all this information over to Congress because ultimately it's going to be up to them to decide whether or not to impeach the president. And there is this amazing footage of Starr's team offloading like 36 of these boxes, kind of just filled with evidence at Congress. And they're all very careful to place warnings on the reports about kind of personal details that should not go public. So to ensure that none of it does, the House Rules Committee draft these regulations on how to properly handle the information. But nobody wants to take responsibility for keeping it a secret. So it ends up on the internet. And this becomes a real defining moment because one of the biggest stories in the world is using the internet as a primary vehicle to reach the public, to escape all these kind of weird rules and regulations that control how information is disseminated.
When the internet was the Wild West, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. So the report that gets leaked details all of their sexual acts, the oral sex, even the use of marital aids, which refers to the infamous cigar incident.
Oh, God, yeah, I
Do you
forgot
remember
about that. Why would you even use a cigar?
Should I say it on the podcast?
I mean,
it's private. It's a private thing, isn't it?
I don't think we need to go into the detail.
Okay, I'll give you the summary. So I have this section highlighted in red in my notes because it's not gross or perverted, but it's just extremely private. It's an intimate moment between two people. It's kind of in the realm of the famous conversation between Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles when they're talking about the tampon, basically, where he wishes he was her tampon. So basically, at one point, the president inserts a cigar into Miss Lewinsky, and he then puts the cigar into his mouth, and then he just says, tastes good.
Cigar?
Yeah. I think that it's America. So they're probably more angry about the fact that it was a Cuban cigar and they're supposed to be banned.
Poor Monica. And the fact that this is all getting revealed.
Yeah, for sure. So this is humiliating for Monica. While Bill could just kind of brush it off,
It's like lad.
Yeah, exactly. She's painfully aware that everyone in the world was reading about these intimate moments that actually meant a lot to her. Like, very little regard for her feelings was kind of like paid. So, get this, the report mentions the word sex 548 times, all right? So, remember, this is the white water investigation. For perspective, this investigation started as a way to look into the Clintons' dealings with Whitewater, a real estate scandal, something that is only mentioned twice.
So completely overlooked because there is nothing.
There's nothing there. They made it all about other matters.
Other matters.
It's not just like, appended on the side. It's the main focus of this investigation. It's just mental. This tells you something that they really focused on the sensationalist parts of the story. In the press, Monica's labeled a homewrecker. Michael Moore shames her on TV. Joan Rivers kind of cracks jokes about her at her expense. John Goodman, which is funny, plays Linda Tripp in the SNL sketch. He dresses up as Linda Tripp. And Monica's just the butt of the joke. And it's horrific for her. In her mind, her entire life is ruined. And she can't even defend herself because she's under legal quarantine. But up until that point, nobody in the world even knew what Monica's voice sounded like. The first time anyone heard her voice was when the Tripp tapes were released on the Drudge Report website. As for Clinton, nobody cared. Isn't that mental? So his approval ratings were still really sky high. People had jobs, the economy was good, and they just did not care. 76% of Americans were against impeachment. So he wasn't going to get impeached.
I think they could recognize that it's nothing about his ability to be a president, this that he's being impeached for. This is about a personal matter.
Yeah. Luckily, most sensible people could look past that. Basically, there was no pressure on him to resign. He wasn't going to go anywhere as long as people were on his side. So the House proceeded with the impeachment inquiry anyway. And in September, Clinton gave the grand jury his testimony, which was televised, And his performance made people just feel very sorry for him. So that only helped his case even more. But by November 1998, Clinton settles his case with Paula Jones for $850,000. He doesn't have to issue an apology. And suddenly, the Republicans don't have a need for her anymore. And so it's like, bye. See ya, Paula. Like, thanks for being our pawn.
Yeah, essentially, I know she gets $850,000, although that's probably to pay some of her fees that she's been like churning out.
Yeah.
So she doesn't win. Monica doesn't win.
No. Clinton obviously wins. So at the same time that Clinton settled, many Republican politicians started making headlines of their own sexual scandals. Turns out that the party of morality wasn't that great at keeping it in their pants either. So the Republicans decided to make an example of one of those people, and that was a guy called Bob Livingston, who had been having multiple affairs and was pressured to resign. And on his way out, he was like, I'm resigning because of my affairs. And that's exactly what the president should do. So he took one for the team.
Right.
Just so he could kind of get that message out, like, I'm going to resign.
Probably coming up to retirement anyway.
Yeah, probably got a nice big payout as well.
Yeah.
Of course, Bill Clinton's like, you can suck it. I'm still not going to resign.
Not
Probably
the right choice of words there.
No, probably not. But yeah, he essentially says, no, I'm not going to resign. So they go to an impeachment trial in January 1999. And by February, the Senate votes on articles of impeachment. They need 67 votes to convict him and remove him from office. They just get 45 for conviction and they get 55 votes against. And that means that Clinton gets away with it. He doesn't get impeached.
It was quite close, actually, then.
Yeah. But remember, the Conservatives or the Republicans had the vast majority of control
seats.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But it still didn't pass because I guess there were some Republicans out there that were like, yeah, this is stupid.
Yeah, it kind of makes us look a bit stupid or petty.
Yeah. One thing I do want to mention is that in 1998, a woman named Juanita Broadwick came forward with rape allegations against Bill Clinton. Now, none of her testimony was included in the Jones trial or the impeachment trial. The most serious allegation in this case essentially just vanished. So it's wild to me. It sounds like this would have been an easy win if that's what they led with, right?
So do you know if that's true or has it not been proven or anything?
It's just disappeared. I think it's true, but it just disappeared. I don't know if they settled out of court, but if they were going to get him for anything, that would have been the easy thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So it makes you question, like, what's going on there? But the crazy thing is that, remember 2015, Hillary Clinton ran for president, right? So she made this whole big song and dance about how all women should speak out against sexual assault. And Juanita Broadwick, she goes to Twitter and she says, I did speak out, but nothing happened.
Oh.
Yeah. And she was allegedly raped.
And then you've got Hillary who's standing by Bill this whole time.
Not good, is it?
Brand
How could you say that's hypocritical?
Yeah.
That women should speak out, but you stood by your man. Stand by your man.
Don't know why you've gone for that accent.
That's from that song from, I don't know. I think it's from James Bond. What's even crazier and shows the extent to which politicians will play dirty is that all three key women in this investigation, Juanita Broadwick, Paula Jones, and Kathleen Wiley, they were all relentlessly brought up during Trump's campaign when he was running against Hillary. And still these women are just being used as pawns to make the other side look bad. It's just ridiculous. It's just they've got no regard for any justice or any morality. None of them have.
Or personal. Yeah, nothing personal. It's all for the greater cause of the party.
Yeah.
So how is Monica doing after all this?
Well, interesting. So after all these years, Monica is actually doing really well. She's a champion for anti-bullying campaigns. And she works as a broadcaster. She does loads of funny, like she's really good at poking fun of herself, but she's also kind of a real advocate for a lot of these things that are happening, like these injustices against women. What's really interesting is how she really controls her narrative now, right? Before she was kind of this pawn that was used. Now she actively speaks out against people like misspeaking about the facts of this case. Which I just think is really great. She's very active on Twitter. She's really insightful. She's really funny. And I just love how she's taken charge of this entire story in a really dignified way. Do you remember when the FBI was investigating Hillary Clinton's emails during her presidential run?
Yes. Yeah.
So apparently all of this was tied to a guy called Anthony, get ready for his name, Anthony Weiner. So he had apparently sent an inappropriate picture of his penis.
Wiener.
Yeah. And this was apparently on a woman's laptop who worked with Hillary Clinton, right? And at the heart of that investigation, they were not interested in these emails. They were interested in unearthing this photograph that was on the laptop. That was what was at the heart of all of this. But they disguised it under like she was misappropriating US government to kind of like store emails that were really sensitive. They didn't give a shit. The Republican Party just wanted the pictures of this wiener. It's like damn high school. Like nothing has changed.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be interesting going into whoever gets the next election. What dirt's going to come up?
Yeah, there's always going to be dirt.
What wieners are going to be involved?
If you want to start a scandal, include a wiener. And so, Adam, that in a nutshell is the multi-layered story of Monica Lewinsky and the Clinton scandal. It's a story of everyone pretending to be the good guys fighting for morality when in fact they were all just in it for their own gain.
Yeah, I had no idea that I don't know how many layers and how many people were working in the background to try and bring him down, and actually how far it went in terms of this impeachment and stuff like that, all because of his private life.
Horrible, isn't it?
But they still wheel him out. I think they wheeled him out when Hillary was...
Wheeled him out? Is he in a wheelchair?
Well, no, I guess they got him out because he's still, I think, considered quite a well-respected president, even though his image has been tarnished. And actually, is he a piece of shit? Well, yeah, people still seem to like him.
People also seem to forget that he's implicated in the whole Epstein kind of flights.
Yeah.
He's on the logs, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So what else is he involved with? And Hillary.
Yeah.
How many other people have they killed? Conspiracy.
Maybe we should do an episode on the conspiracies of people that they've killed.
Conspiracy of the Clintons. One thing I did find out about Bill Clinton is, do you know that he's won a Grammy?
No.
Yeah.
About what? What did he do?
He won a Grammy Award in 2004 for Best Spoken World Album for Children, narrating the Russian National Orchestra's album Wolf Tracks and Peter and the Wolf.
What? That's incredible.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure not many presidents have a Grammy.
No. Where does he keep his Grammy, do you reckon?
I don't know. In his closet of lies.
Calm down. So there is this really incredible fact before we end this episode. Because before all of this kicked off, we never really used the word intern at all. It wasn't common really in English until this scandal blew up. In the aftermath, you might remember Gordon Brown was kind of gearing up to take office from Tony Blair. And famously, he said at the Labour Party conference in Blackpool in 1998, while talking about stable economic policy, he said, "We will have no U-turns, no left turns, no right turns, and definitely no interns." And it was all because of what was happening with Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton.
Right. And then people are started using that word more commonly?
It just became more common, yeah.
Yeah. What was it before? Work experience?
Don't know.
Not that would, yeah.
Dog's body? I don't know. Do you think that you have a more of a well-rounded view of what had happened?
Yes, I do. I think Linda has a lot to answer for.
She does, bitch.
I don't know what she's up to now.
I don't think she's doing well. I think she's gone through like a really messy divorce. I think she's quite lonely from what I gathered from the documentary. But I think she brought that on herself.
Yeah, thinking that she could play both parties.
Yes, snitches get stitches.
Yeah, if anyone's angry about Linda.
Actually, do you know who played Linda?
Who?
I could get this wrong. In the impeachment story, I think she was played by... Who's the one that I hate from American Horror Story?
Not Sarah Paulson.
Yes, Sarah Paulson. Can I do the impression of Sarah Paulson?
Do the impression of Sarah Paulson.
Okay, give me a line to say.
Can I have an apple?
Okay, this is how Sarah Paulson would say it. Can I have an apple?
She does cry a lot in her roles. She
does, always crying. Give me something else to say.
Don't know. Don't touch my cat.
Don't touch my cat. It's always the same.
Yeah. But she is really good. I still like her. It's just certain roles when she puts on the waterworks. It's like,
I remember seeing one scene where she cried so hard that snot was coming out of her nose. And I was like, that's acting.
It's real acting when it happens. When it like runs down the nose and into the mouth, you're like, wow, she didn't even blink.
I don't think she's that good. Like, I can't. I'd liked her in a Freak Show because that's the first time I came across the character. But then when I realized every single character was that, I was like, yeah, nah. But yeah, should we run the outro?
Let's run the outro.
And that wraps up another journey into the fascinating and intriguing On the Compendium. If today's episode tickled your curiosity, don't forget to hit that follow button in your favorite podcasting app. It really makes the world of difference when you do. And for our diehard listeners, next week's episode is waiting for you right on our Patreon, and it's completely free. If you're hungry for more, then you can join our Certified Freaks tier to unlock our entire archive of unreleased episodes and get exclusive content and sneak peeks about what's coming up next. We'd love you to come and join our growing community. New episodes are released every Tuesday, and until then, remember, sometimes the smallest secrets can shake the mightiest of thrones. See you next week.
See ya.